Close Up is brought to you by the Kia Sorento R, redefining the power of Kia.
If you were watching last night, we had a story about a Wellington kindy which has an iPad for the toddlers to use. Some of you found this extraordinary, others felt, OK, this is where technology is taking us. But will technology stop our kids thinking? Can they do anything without the net these days? Lisa Glass put it to the test with two 11-year-olds.
Here's the challenge. Two 11-year-olds, 3 questions, 1 problem. They're not allowed to use the internet. We're going to follow them and see how they do.
How far away from Earth is the sun?
Cool.
I think initially they'll struggle. Even without the internet, I'm guessing that those kids will work it out.
You won't be needing this. Let's go. People worry whether their kids are becoming too reliant on the internet.
Is that a bad thing? Not really. No, it's not a bad thing, I don't think, really. We became reliant on books for 5 centuries and no one seemed to sort of get too upset about that.
OK, where to?
Can we go down to the library down the road?
So would you normally do research in the library?
Sometimes, but I more do it on the computer.
So how would you normally find stuff like this out?
Probably internet.
Are there any skills or abilities that the generation older than these kids have that the kids don't have?
No, not particularly. I think what's happening now, we're the first country in the world that's adopted a curriculum which has the competencies as the centric notion around that. And the competencies are being able to communicate. Be able to think is the second one. Manage self, and what we're trying to get parents to do now is step back and allow students to actually learn.
I found it.
Yeah, I found it.
Many parents won't think of this, but in fact New Zealand is probably the leading educational country in the world. I bring tours across from other countries here all the time to see what's happening here.
What is the price of an 11-year-old's airfare from Auckland to Christchurch this Friday?
Probably maybe find it at somewhere like a travel agent.
They didn't tell me. They weren't allowed.
They weren't allowed to tell you?
No.
What are you going to do now?
I think, well,
We have to let them learn to manage themselves because it's an incredibly complex world. What schools are trying to do now is shift the end point of learning from knowing stuff to understanding.
Would you know how much it would cost to fly to Christchurch?
Okay, thanks. Bye.
We're teaching reading and writing as good as we're ever going to do that. We've had 500 years of practice, you know, we've got it down to a fine art.
What's wrong with the 3 R's?
There's nothing wrong with the 3 R's. We've got to rethink that though now in an era where we've got much more complex ways of communicating. What we're shifting to now is a realm where kids can learn much more efficiently by YouTube.
See, I don't know if parents would have thought of YouTube that way. They might think of it as a diversion, something entertaining, but not a learning tool.
It is the most powerful learning tool on the planet.
What kind of oil should you put in a 2-stroke lawnmower?
Got any ideas about that one?
Probably a hardware saw.
So is this easier or harder than you thought it would be?
I actually think it's a bit easier.
This is our big shift. It's not being taught what to learn, because I can just reach into my pocket and go, if I want to know something, it's on here. So what we have to do is prepare them for a world that's changing very, very quickly now.
Okay, so you...
He didn't know.
What's that?
He didn't know.
What are you going to do now? You don't think we should be worried about our kids at all?
No, far from it. The parent expectations are that they want what they had. So we've got to educate parents to the fact that actually what we did at school was okay for our time, but what these kids are now doing is okay for their time.
You actually did have the ability to figure this stuff out.
Yeah.
But it would have been a lot quicker and a lot easier to have found it out online, and then you could have done a lot of other stuff with that time.
Yeah, definitely.